as present.
He's,
Okay. Yes, call the meeting order.
Okay, and it is 7:33. And we are all present, Janet and
Yep.
Barry and June. So we have minutes from Janet, so why don't we act on those?
Can you one more time
We'll
tell me the
take
time that we started?
7:33,
Very good.
yeah. We have minutes from July 19th, which was last Tuesday night, when we met with the Hearst House Building Committee. And the only thing I said about this one, I think, oh, it was the full restoration.
The what?
Tim Walheuter calls,
I don't think we need the question.
what will the construction standards
Yeah.
be? No, we don't really.
I just start with this project has been called, because that's what it is.
Yeah.
I mean, we're using a fair amount of original material or older material, but there's a lot of new material, but that's what happens when you do a restoration.
Yeah, so we could eliminate the question and then just go with what it is.
Start with this project.
Oh, okay.
Is that all right, Janet?
Oh, yeah, that's fine.
Because the unresolved questions and ideas are mentioned at the end of that.
And they get, and yes, right, right.
So, I
Yeah,
think-
you took it a step ahead of what, it's like starting to answer the questions. so
Yeah, I
that's-
don't think it needs the question.
Okay. Do we have in these minutes that we set our meeting time? We set our meeting time for the second Friday of the month at 10 o'clock in person in this room.
Is that on the back there? No. No.
Oh, it's,
Okay, we can add that.
oh, it doesn't seem to be anywhere, does it? I don't remember when we did it.
We did it Tuesday.
We did it Tuesday?
Yeah,
Okay.
Our new meeting time.
yeah.
With somebody, do we need
Yeah.
to do that as a,
No, we voted already.
Okay.
We didn't vote, we just agreed.
okay,
Yeah.
so we set our new meeting time.
Yeah,
Our
second
new
Friday.
monthly meeting time.
New monthly meeting time.
Second Friday of the month,
Second
10 o'clock
Friday.
in this room,
at
room 227, town offices,
In room 227.
in person.
In person. And, that goes on, that goes on the the one for the 21st?
On
No,
the
no.
19th.
The
The
19th.
okay, that's where I got it, good.
That goes on the 19th before the adjournment.
Yeah, so we agreed. It was just a decision that we made as a group. It wasn't
Yeah.
really a
Yeah.
vote.
No.
Yeah.
Okay,
And you also need to sign that one.
Oh.
Yeah, no problem, but
I'm having a tough week, I guess.
just for finish, that's all.
Yeah, and
Just
that's
res-
easy enough to do. Mhm.
just respectfully,
I always, you know,
Janet.
when I was in 4-H, we always said respectfully submitted.
Yes.
And I can't shake that.
you can, that's fine. I read somewhere you didn't have to put the submitted,
Oh.
so sometimes I don't do that, so that's fine. It's probably more proper.
Sounds, yes, very official.
Okay, so with those amendments, can we have a motion to approve the July 19th minutes?
Move the 19th minutes with those
Okay,
changes.
and I'll second. And all those in favor?
All right,
Aye, okay. Okay, approved. Okay, when you redo this, I'll post it for you, and then I can show you another time how to post
Yeah, and James has to get a new password from Eloise, so.
for you.
For me.
Yeah, okay.
So
yeah.
that will, then
Then you can,
you'll be free from that task.
okay, now the July 21 minutes, I think all I needed was the time of, was,
Well, the word tasks in the first paragraph
Yeah.
yeah.
instead of test.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
And
And then there was I know what it was. I had gotten it backwards when the vote was 2-1 versus unanimous.
Yes.
yes,
And I think I flip-flopped
Yes.
it to the right way now.
yes.
Okay.
But the 2-1 should be 2-0.
2-0.
2-0, okay.
Okay.
I just didn't,
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
vote.
should be 2-0.
yeah. I can change that.
And I move to approve those as, with that minor change.
Okay. And I second. And all those in favor?
Aye.
All right,
Okay. Okay. Now, I have a question about the minutes on the 21st, though, I guess. Well, we already
Oh.
approved, but anyway, I always put the webinar number in the heading
oh,
because I thought I had to. Is that the case? Do you know?
have no idea.
All right, well, let's just go with it the way it is. If someone tells us that we need to put the webinar number for when we have Zoom meetings,
Yeah.
then we'll
Okay,
do that.
all right.
But we-
Oh, this doesn't say at any point that it's a Zoom meeting.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm talking about.
Okay,
I used to put,
So do we just put the webinar number if it's a Zoom?
This
meeting,
is
right?
what I
Well,
used
just
to
put
do.
that it's a
Yeah.
Zoom only, it's a Zoom only meeting.
It's Zoom only.
But you don't have to follow my lead, just,
Yeah.
as long as you get it in there somehow.
Oh, sure, yeah, yeah. I have, you send these to us, right?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah, so I
Those are all-
can just copy from it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But each time, there's a different number.
Yes, right.
So you'll have to
right.
look at the number that's
Yeah.
on the posting.
Well, the big thing for the minutes, the big thing is that it was a Zoom only meeting or it was a meeting at a place.
Okay,
Now, the one for the 19th,
does it say where it was?
no,
So this should be,
we need to go back and visit the beginning, the first line on that. Call to order by June Miller at 7:02 PM in Memorial Hall at the 1870 Town Hall.
up here, yeah, okay. I was trying to say, where did I
Yeah.
put that anyway? In the room, tell the room
In
number?
Memorial Hall. at
Oh,
the
that
eight-
one was
at the
Memorial Hall, that's
1870
right,
Town Hall.
not
The
Memorial Hall.
19th one
Yeah,
was in Memorial Hall.
yeah. And then this one,
The
the,
other one is a Zoom meeting,
was a Zoom.
Zoom only.
And so I probably can't get that number now, can I?
Yes, you can.
Oh.
What I can do for you is, I'll send you I'll just forward you what you need.
Okay,
And you can put it in however you want to
All
put
right.
it in. You don't have to do it the way I did it. Okay. Let me just write that down. Send Janet Zoom. Okay.
I'm learning,
Well,
I'm in training.
there's all these technical
Yeah.
details.
It
Well,
is
the other
the
thing
details.
is that things have been so confusing. Anyway, and meeting in different places and times and
Yeah, yeah.
Me-
Yeah.
methods.
Well, because the society, it's nice if the society meets in Memorial Hall, so that's
Sure.
a different,
Yeah.
because we're private and we don't have all these things we have to observe.
Sometimes it's easier too for me to recollect what we talked about at a meeting
If-
if we move around.
If you can,
Oh, yeah, I
if
remember
you
where it was.
can put it in the place it
Right,
happened, yeah.
Right.
Okay, now we can get into Dan's, handouts, or there's a couple of little things.
Let's do the couple of other things. and
Yeah,
get 'em
I
off of
think
our
that's a
plate.
good idea. I have two things. One is a quote from a photographer. His name is Mark Mendoza. He's from Littleton. And he was the best choice I could see for doing our product photography, our artifact photography. And he was local, and he was cooperative, and was very patient waiting for us to get together our list. So he's given us a quote for a full day, which may be more than 8 hours, but it will be a full day for $2,500, which is pretty good, I think. I showed it to Marty, and
What's our appropriation?
our appropriation is $4,000. It's, what we have left is $4,500, but I built in $500 to get some help to set it up for the photographer. And his note to us says that we need to assemble all these things in one place. And I had suggested that the town hall was available and had a large open space and an elevator. And if we couldn't if we couldn't do it downstairs, we would have that big space upstairs with an elevator to help us. The only thing I think that would be unwieldy would be the fire pumper, the hand pump.
No great problem, we can
Just-
roll it right in the
Just wheel
plate.
it in? Okay.
It's easy to move. If I can roll it up and down the street to get it from here to there, I guess I can roll
You
it
can roll it in there.
across the parking lot.
There's,
The thing that's difficult is the item that's over in the fire station. We've gotta move that.
the shingle, the,
That's a pain in the neck, but we'll get it over there
okay,
somehow.
well, maybe Highway could bring it over to, maybe they could.
I don't know. I don't like to ask them to do something like that.
Well, I'll ask them. I haven't asked them to do much of anything,
Yeah,
so,
they might find it interesting too.
well,
These
it's just that I don't have a vehicle, I don't have an appropriate vehicle
Yeah.
to move anything like that.
And our truck right now is out of commission.
Yeah, so,
It's not
Well,
licensed.
the other thing we could do is we could take that one off the list and put on some other things instead.
How big is it?
well,
How big is it? Would it fit in
It's 5
Nate's
feet
truck?
long?
Yeah, that would fit in Nate's truck, one of the days when Nate's at the farm.
Oh, yeah, it'll fit in the pickup,
Yeah,
but it
Um,
won't fit in your trunk.
yeah. If we could get a date that's compatible with Nate's work schedule.
well,
I mean, it's gotta be compatible mostly with Mark's, but,
well, we could, well, we have to have everything ready.
yeah.
And then,
Yes.
and tell him when that is going to be, and then he'll come.
Yeah, yeah.
So, it's just navigating the schedule.
And what do you, he's photographing, what would you call it? Artifact from the collection, or?
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And we don't, the estimate is based on the number of things and loosely the number of shots per item. Some have multiple images, and I don't know. I think it's not that cut and dried. I think he just charges probably $2,500 a day.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's the thing. And we do have that $500 built into that budget for someone to help. And Marty
To
would,
help him?
yeah, and Marty would certainly help him. It's just that I don't know if he would be allowed to.
Yeah,
you know, have any income from it.
Oh. Yeah, I don't know the answer to that.
So who would I ask about that? He would be a good person to do that.
To set things up?
Well, to help,
Oh.
you know, he probably.
Why do we have to pay somebody? Can't it be done by volunteers?
Well, it's a long day. I mean, I wouldn't want to be doing it all day long, and I don't know about you, but it's built right into the budget.
I understand.
Yeah. Do you know of anybody that would enjoy helping to get those things organized in the town hall and maybe move them around once?
Well, the reality is, we're gonna collect them in Memorial Hall, most of them. The 3 portraits upstairs, we've probably got to take down,
Right.
and moving them around is a lot. It can be done, but
they have to be, they're not hanging right now, or they
Yes,
are?
those
But they
three.
can't be taken in C2 and.
In what?
No, he'd have
Well,
to be
in
on a
C2 in the
ladder.
spot that they're in?
He'd have to be on a giant ladder.
it's
Oh.
hard to get to them
Uh-huh.
where they
Yeah.
are. I don't know. The big thing we've gotta do is figure out how we're gonna do background.
That's his problem.
That's his problem.
That's not our problem. We've been asked to get the things
Yeah.
into a space that's, you know, usable.
So therefore, if it's a large item, having somebody else there is important. It probably
Yeah.
couldn't be photographed if there wasn't someone to help move it. Is that what we're saying?
Well, it would make things go a little more
Yeah.
easily. I mean, if he goes over, if he can't do it in a day, then it'll cost more. Or we can just say, you know, that's enough.
How many things we end up on the list?
Well, if you count multiple images,
No, but I'm just talking about
25
25.
about,
Yeah. Yeah, that was about right.
so that's half of what we hoped to be able to
What we've
photograph.
talked about. And that doesn't mean, I mean, my view is we should have a few more things available. Because if he's there and he's set for the whole day and he gets done, I'd put some more in front of it.
Well,
If he's charging us for the day,
Well, it can't hurt as long as we prioritize and we know
Yeah.
that there are certain ones we
Yeah.
want. Wouldn't think it would hurt to have a few extra things around,
no.
and those make me head up the next list, you know?
I mean, we've got plenty of things.
Yeah,
And we could add a few other things, just so we're ready with them.
yeah. Now, did Mark mention wanting to have some help, or are you just saying if he should want to have help, then it would be nice if we had someone?
he doesn't, no, he doesn't, I mean,
I mean, he's not gonna-
product photography, I mean, he's probably used to doing it by himself.
Uh-huh.
Because, you know, it's expensive to have another person. But in my experience with watching Marty, it's fussy.
Yeah,
And if you have somebody who can move things around for you and just little, you know, little tweaks.
yeah. Could you ask him so that we would know what his preference is? And tell him that we have somebody who's,
I can
we
ask
could
him,
easily
sure.
get somebody who would be
Yeah, I can ask him.
interested. Yeah, I think he'd be the one that would decide probably if he
Yeah.
wanted to have an extra person.
I mean, it
around.
takes a lot more time if you have to do that
Yeah.
too. I mean, I know this from watching.
Well, yes, and
Yeah.
a lot of the things that are similar in size and so forth, you can have lined up and you can,
Drop and pop.
and you're ready
Yeah.
to take another shot.
Yeah,
Other things, you've gotta do a lot more setup each time.
yeah.
So maybe, yeah, maybe we could just solve it that way by saying, we'll ask him and see what his preference is.
Okay. He'll just probably say he doesn't require that. Otherwise, he would have specified it in the contract, I think. But I
Yeah.
can ask anyway.
Yeah.
But it would be helpful to have somebody else there to tend him a bit.
Well, especially if he's trying to get portraits off the wall and that sort of stuff.
Well, see,
Yeah.
you know, physically, I can't do these
Yeah,
things.
yeah,
I mean, I can
yeah,
march around with little stuff, but
yeah.
and I can be careful.
So
With-
maybe we could word it that we'd like to offer him help to just be there for whatever he would need to have help moving and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And let him make that choice. Unless you feel that we should insist
Do you know
on
of
it.
anybody that would like to volunteer to do that kind of thing?
We'll see when it is. I may do it myself. I may have somebody else lined up to come help too, or come part of the day or something. We've just got to see how the whole thing develops as we get ready, but yes, I think we can do it.
All right.
There are things like the 1830 map that are going to be a project to do. Because that's going to be how he decides to photograph it. He's good, you know.
Well, I was thinking, watching you, for example, with the Civil War things, and watching how having two people, some things are pretty fragile, and having two people to the sash, you know, the
Yeah, we fussed
CS4,
over that a lot.
and just instead of having one person, ooh, gosh, it ripped because I was, you know, trying to move it. I mean, that's just the other thing to think about is it to the advantage of the
fragility,
artifacts
yeah.
also
Yeah,
to make sure there was a
yeah.
assistant
ca-
on hand.
A careful hands, yeah.
But anyway, that sounds like, are we in agreement on that? We're just not sure how,
Well, I
who
will,
and of course, if he says, I don't want anybody in here, then that's another whole story. But,
well, as it is, we need to get someone to help us take down the portraits.
Yeah,
We can't,
but we put them up and took them down with 2 or 3 people. I mean, we're going to have to do some prep ahead of time,
yeah,
but, and we got to see what else is going on in the building at the time that we set the date,
that's right.
so that we may have to take those down a day or 2 ahead of time. And put them in Memorial Hall or something, so we won't have to deal with
Yeah.
other things. I
Okay,
mean, the big problem with Memorial Hall is there's no background that's not busy.
yeah, well, he will have to bring his own,
Yeah.
his own drops and his own backdrops. Okay, so my question, at least that I haven't even asked yet, is the money. We have $4,500, $500 of which was earmarked for an assistant. You know, whether or not we do that is, we don't know yet. But it comes, we have the money to pay the $2,500. So if
Alright.
if that price is acceptable to you,
First half of the day will be devoted to loading in and setting up equipment, as well as to shooting all tabletop items and paintings. Second half of the day can be devoted to finishing off any of the smaller items, if any, and then moving on to the freestanding items.
I think, maybe we need to move forward with just making the decision at this point. And could we say that we will offer how much is he getting?
$2,500 a day.
And then offer the 500 to assist if somebody like Barry's saying, you know, he wouldn't, you know, that some people might want to volunteer to do it, that's fine. But if not,
Yeah.
then.
I think we volunteer enough, all 3 of us.
Well,
I'll tell you right now.
I think this may be something where you want to choose
You wanna
somebody
be
with a
there.
little care too. You don't
Yeah.
want a bull in the china shop like me. Don't let me in there and do this. I am a bull in the china shop. So, you know, it might be good to have it be a little bit more controlled than, just,
Well, part of the reason I said I may do it myself is simply because I'm familiar with all the stuff.
yes,
Yeah,
that's
and you,
right.
and
I
you
know
want-
it all, I know how to handle it, I
Yeah.
know, I'm familiar with it, I'm
Yeah.
used to the materials.
And at this point, maybe all we need to say is that we will offer the opportunity for him to have somebody assist. And then we'll
Yeah.
pay,
Then we'll deal with that.
and that it could be a paid, but do we need to say that now, or can we deal with that later?
No, he doesn't need to know that.
Okay, all right. So, yeah, I think that's great. And then, Barry, it doesn't matter at this point whether you do it or not.
I'm gonna step back in this whole thing, though. The walking wheel is in this building at the moment. So that's gotta be moved, and that's the same game as the other one. It's just big enough, so you've gotta,
Unwieldy.
and then the trouble is, then you gotta take them back somewhere.
Yeah.
Because you can put it in the bullet house, but you can't put it in the storage building, because they're just plain too big. There's no room
Yeah.
for those big things in there.
Where are they now?
One of them is in the attic of this building, in the
Yeah.
attic in here, and the other one is in the fire station.
Yeah.
Maybe we'd be better off to take those off the list, because then you don't have to worry about moving them in to move them out again.
I mean, they're not heavy, so they're not hard to move in that regard, and they come apart. You take the wheel off, because we used to just cart them all over the place in Sturbridge Village from one house to the other. But they're, an antique like that is fragile. You don't want one of the spokes on the wheel to break or something, but
Yeah.
I don't think it's a terribly difficult thing to
Well,
move.
the distance we've got to move them, you just
Yeah.
take it intact and move it.
Yeah, but the
Because it's easy.
wheel comes off all the time. I mean, you just pull a pin out and take it off and carry it,
Yeah.
so, yeah. But-
Um,
I think we can, if we do have a truck,
Yeah, yeah.
um,
We can arrange to have a
you know,
truck,
we
I'm
can-
sure.
we
Bob
could-
Blair
we could
has
keep-
one too.
yeah,
so,
that's right, and he's
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah,
We could, those two items, one of which is heavy and the other one unwieldy, if not heavy, could be transported.
Yeah.
And
What's not heavy?
the wheel is
Oh,
the,
the wheel isn't too heavy.
right. And then
The other one's.
make arrangements to have them brought back. I mean, they can live in the Memorial Hall for a little while.
Yes.
yeah,
I mean, you spent a lot of time carefully choosing what went on there, and
Oh,
I
I
think
know.
we should keep the things if we can figure out the logistics.
should we turn this into a vote situation so we can move on? I don't
Well-
know if this is a thing you vote on or not, but,
Well, no, we do need to vote because
Yeah.
it's money.
We need to
Yeah,
vote
yeah.
on whether to contract with them to do the
okay,
work.
let's do that, because I know we could kind of
Um,
talk for a long time about this, probably. I could.
Did you have Marty vet this, I assume?
I had him look at it, but and he didn't say much. He just mostly he looked at the photographer's website and thought that his work was really quite good, very good. And $2,500 might seem like a lot, but I think it's pretty competitive.
Yeah.
So shall I make a motion at this point?
What are
or-
we gonna get? It says high-res images for print
Right,
and low-res images for web, because you don't want big files.
that's right.
But
The high res will be
are we
on.
just gonna get a printer, or are we gonna get
You're not going to get any. You're not going to get any paper. You're going to get a high resolution image on a thumb drive
okay,
or some kind of a flash drive.
okay.
And if you need it printed, I mean, the whole idea behind this is digital.
Yeah,
But
so we're gonna get digital images,
of both kinds.
on a computer or on a storage device.
Right.
And we will we don't have to do anything more. That's all I wanted to know.
Well, we can.
That's what I was
yeah.
just trying to say.
You can take that storage device and have prints made.
Oh, yeah.
For sure.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If we want sizable prints or
Well,
things
maybe
like that, we can. And there are a few things in this that we might do that with. Just because they'd be good things to do that with. And for instance, we could display them in this building
that's right.
if we did a bigger print
Yeah.
of some of these items. We could display them in this in the hallway or something here so that people see stuff
Yeah.
that without having the things out and,
I think it's a very nice thing to
Yeah,
have.
that's a good
worry
idea.
about.
I hadn't really thought of, I didn't get that far in my,
the other thing that I've already figured out is if we're gonna have a truck there, we're gonna take all of that, ice equipment over to the fire station.
okay, that's in the.
Oh, yeah.
It's in
yeah.
Memorial Hall.
In the, okay.
So I
So,
move
yeah, you can
that we hire, you can redesign this for me, because I'm not.
accept the contract.
That we accept or,
The proposal.
all right, do you want to make the motion? You know
Yeah,
more about
yeah.
the right way to say this. You go ahead and make the
I
motion.
move that the commission accept the Mark Mendoza proposal for a full day of product photography, artifact photography for the estimated at 2.5.
Hang on one sec, I want to get this right. For a full day of artifact photography,
Yeah,
yeah,
estimated at
At-
$2,500.
at 2,500.
Quoted at, actually.
Quoted, yeah,
It's a
yeah.
quote, it's not really
Right,
a.
it's not an estimate, okay, hang on a sec.
Um,
And do we want to add, oh, okay, go ahead, Barry, you asked what you were going to add.
Under the town appropriation from CPA funds,
Yeah, yeah, it's paid.
25,000,
2,500.
I mean, 2,500. Let's get that right. How does that, fit?
From the town appropriation of
town.
CPA funds.
Yeah,
I don't know if you need the article, but I have it at home.
No, that's all right.
Yeah,
You
Okay.
don't need that in this.
do we want to say anything about the 500,
No.
or just wait on that?
No,
Okay.
we can deal with that
Okay,
separately. Okay, and I second,
all right.
oh no, I moved, so someone else
So
has
I'll
to second. Okay, Barry seconds. And all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, unanimous. Good. Okay, we should probably move on.
It's good though, it's going to be neat.
The
that-
letter in regard to the land acquisition,
Yeah,
the conservation land acquisition, is good, is fine, and this is typical of the communication. If they write about anything like this, and there's state money involved, so they always get to review stuff if it's state money. And that property, I mean, the buildings that used to be there and all that had been in Macris previously, so they knew about that stuff. And, but this is typical of the kind of thing that we get. Sometimes it'll have recommendation for action by us or whatever, and often not. And in this case, this is the kind of stuff to look out for. And indeed, we should be concerned about archaeological stuff up around that pond. But
Barry, would you mind, I haven't read it yet, would you mind just paraphrasing quickly what
it basically says that there may be archaeological sites from the Native American period, the pre-Columbian, not pre-Columbian, pre-colonial period. And that they would be, that's something that should be considered when changes are made on the property. Basically, they make the comment that they strongly encourage the acquisition of parcels for conservation because that will assist to protect and preserve any ancient or historical period archaeological sites. So they like that whole thing. We don't have to put that in our minutes. I
No.
just mentioned it. That's,
Yeah.
but that seems to be the thing that they're mainly concerned about.
Yeah. We should go there maybe in the fall. I've been there once.
I haven't been up and gone through that property ever, really.
Yeah.
And, yeah, and we did, I mean, you know, I don't think Mary Ann's gone through that either years ago.
She took me there,
She took you there.
yeah.
Did you find stuff?
You know, I'd have to go back and look at the photographs from that day. I just can't remember.
I mean, we found things when we went down to Gates Pond
Yes,
and down the hill there. We found things that we thought were likely, but we didn't have a lot that was obvious.
yeah,
And I suspect that's gonna be the case up there too.
yeah.
But it's not a place that's been highly developed otherwise over the years. And therefore it's, you know, it was farmland and stuff like that, and so it shouldn't be too much disturbed.
It's a beautiful pond there
Yeah,
in
Oh,
the
yeah.
fall.
yeah.
Yeah, I wish there was more open land still, but I'd love to convince them to open up the field near the road again a bit, so there's a little bit more open space there. But I don't know, they'll have to, that's for conservation to decide.
Yeah, that's good for diversity of birds and animals and things too, to
Maybe we
Yeah.
have
could,
some open land.
we could,
Yeah,
okay. So that's
So
those.
what is we have no particular action plan with
You,
this?
you can just, I think you could just say, Janet, that we received a communication from the Commonwealth.
Mass
And-
Historical Commission.
Yeah, and just read it and write a sentence or two
Okay.
based on your reading.
But they're not asking us to
I
get back
really,
to them.
I
or
really
anything.
don't even think you have to do that. What you need to say is we received a letter from Mass Historical Commission in relation to the town's acquisition of Horseshoe Pond Conservation Land
Yeah,
Yeah,
at Lyman and Linden Streets. And that's enough to record in the minutes,
Yeah.
because we're not really doing anything with
yeah,
it.
that's what I was wondering, there is no real action
And
involved.
the letter will go in the file, so
Okay.
we have a file of such letters. We haven't had any lately, but we had one about River Bridge. Quite significant one there.
Yeah,
We've had them for various other different things. But as soon as the state has to be involved in it, or there's state money involved in anything, I mean, we got a letter like this about the post office building, when Billy was building the new post office
oh, yeah,
building
yeah,
for the post office department, because it was in the village.
yeah,
It was a new construction in the village, and it was a government project, federal government money involved in terms of the rental and so forth, being built for their use. And so therefore, the Mass Historical Commission reviewed the project.
yeah,
And what did we think of it? And it happened at the time that I'd already seen the plans for the building, because Billy had showed them to me,
yeah,
and so forth, so
Yeah.
so at any rate, we didn't have to really do much about it, but we do get these communications.
yeah,
And if it potentially involves any of the things that we have on the inventory list in Boston, they definitely will write to us about them too.
yeah,
Something that's in the vicinity of where something's being done, there's a road project, is it gonna affect this property and this property, kind of stuff.
mhm,
So we haven't had one lately, but we typically get one or two of these a year, some years.
okay. I do have one other thing, but I'm not going to do it now because I want us to get going on this. Can we start with would you rather start with the project vision, talking a little bit about that? I'm sort of nuts and bolts
Yeah,
So
I'm-
I would like to start with the administrative tasks and see,
Well, I'd like to start with the project vision simply because it's something we've been addressing before. And I'd like to take his comment. Initially, we had his one-sheet thing with 4 items on it about
yes,
the vision statement.
right,
And then we had our vision statement, and I assumed those are comments based on our vision statement. And then I realized at the end of this thing, my goodness, we got 2 whole pages of stuff about Bullet House project vision. And I don't know how much that relates to our vision statement, or,
I think this is a much more expanded, what would you call it? A much more expanded treatment. I mean, he's dealing with exterior, he's compartmentalized things, exterior improvements, interior improvements, accessibility, and a responsible design. And that's beyond what we dealt with in our vision.
This is almost like the next step.
Yeah, it's,
The vision's a little bit more
he,
condensed usually, I think.
he did say that our vision might want to include the 4 items: accessibility,
Yes, yes.
treating it as a campus with other buildings, our funding plans, and how we're gonna staff it.
Yeah.
And
I thought that was good.
those are the things that we might wanna tweak our own vision statement with.
Right.
well, yes, but then he addresses accessibility on his other thing that he gave us.
Which other thing is that?
Okay, well, why don't we read
Bullet
that?
House project vision,
Oh, the project vision, yeah. Yeah.
second page.
Yeah, why don't you read that, Barry? and
Has
then-
accessibility. Site features and first floor would be made as accessible as possible without substantial or destructive modification to meaningful historic elements. And changing the point is the displays and stuff would be in the areas that are accessible. We got the issue of the front room that is semi-accessible, so we know about that, but the rest of it that works fine. Public use of the second floor would be determined based on a waiver process through the Massachusetts Architectural Access Barriers Board. That isn't the right words, but that's okay. Or through the future installation of a lift should a suitable location be determined and planned. An accessible restroom will be provided for staff and visitors. That's basically what we've been planning all along.
Well, not probably a lift, though.
No, we haven't planned for a lift.
And he did say in his comments that that's probably a stretch.
Well, the real problem for a lift is that if you get them upstairs, there isn't a single doorway that's wide enough. There isn't, I mean, it just is not
Yeah,
easily made accessible up there. And I don't really want to start tearing it apart to make that happen.
yeah,
Downstairs, we were able to because we opened up the entrance room and we put the ramp in, and that gets us through 2/3 of the place. And we also were addressing the toilet room and stuff. All of that stuff was all part of what we've been doing. So it basically says the same thing we were intending to. I might tweak it a little, but I don't really want to talk about a lift for upstairs because I think I would address that by saying that the upstairs areas would require too much modification of historic elements in order to make it accessible, and that we would be intending to use the waiver process and other materials, either videotaped or either by recordings or or a book or whatever that somebody can look at downstairs to see what's upstairs. But yeah, I think we can address that okay, but I don't, and we aren't that far off of what he's got there anyway. We had already said something about it, I think, but maybe not. I guess I hadn't addressed it. No, I guess we hadn't addressed it.
Accessibility, we had it in a
We had it
previous.
in when we were talking,
Yeah,
but I don't think it made it into the final
yeah.
thing.
So we need to,
So this
we
is-
need to make a statement about accessibility in our vision.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe what we're gonna do is work on these things together and remodel this with some of this stuff in it.
Right,
Yeah,
I think, yeah, and I think this is very similar to our vision statement, or at least it touches on a lot of the same things. It's just that one is a statement which I think is meant to be concise. I think they can be used for two different purposes. I think if somebody wanted to know what your vision statement was, and you handed them this, it would be like, well, wait a minute, I don't need to know exactly how you're gonna do all this, I just wanna know what is your, what's the outcome going to be? And,
that's
then-
what this is outcome.
Yeah, and then this, and then I think for another purpose, you might hand somebody something like this that goes into it at more depth. Does that make sense?
well,
This is-
there are 4 things that we did not address in our
Right.
vision statement, and
Right.
he's suggesting that we do that. So
Yeah.
I think we're.
I think that's a good place to begin, actually.
And I think that we're pretty solid on what our expectations are for accessibility, because Barry, has,
I don't know whether he really, his thing about museum will consist of house and yard with extension to the old town hall, and I mean, that, I thought we had addressed.
I think we had, let me just find that.
It's in the next to last paragraph.
The adjacent town hall can accommodate requiring larger spaces. The nearby Hearst House and Powder House can also be useful for interpretation. All of these are important contributing elements in the historic center village. I think we covered it, unless there's some way to write it that connects them more holistically.
I think we can perhaps expand a bit on the language about how we use the town hall and the Hearst House and other things, but, I mean, the Hearst House, for instance, is going to be things that can be, things that aren't of high monetary value, that would lend themselves to an exhibit in an unheated space, on a seasonal basis, sort of thing. Particularly things that relate to outdoors or whatever. I think that we can put a little bit, flesh out just a little bit about how those other things might be used. But the main thing is that the Bullet House is the anchor of the historical interpretation, and that the most exhibit stuff and so forth is there. But the town hall is available as needed for bigger presentations. I don't know.
Yeah. I think maybe we need to somehow wordsmith it so that we're connecting we're thinking of it as a whole. It sounds, the way it's written, it sounds fragmented.
It sounds fragmented.
It sounds like these are separate buildings that aren't really, they're related, but we don't really say that we think of them as a.
Well, in the story of Berlin and the center of Berlin, I suppose you can relate them through chronology, you can relate them through current use, you can, find a sort of a theme that ties them together depending on how you want to do it. Chronology is always interesting because we are about history. It might mean doing a little bit of work on figuring out.
Yeah, maybe we just have to, I mean, we do say important contributing elements in the historic center village.
Yeah, and what is it about each of those things that, very, very briefly, each of those things that, what is the thing that it sort of either uniquely or in the biggest way contributes to the history of the center of town, center village?
Well, there's,
And
I'm thinking about did you see the thing that we wrote about possible exhibits in the Hearst House? I don't know if you've seen
I
that.
heard them talking about it at the meeting. I don't think I saw anything written.
I wrote up, well, actually, they actually used my sheet that I wrote up about.
yes, they did, yeah.
And I don't have it with me tonight, but I, for instance, I talked about the fact that you could do an exhibit about the gravestones and the burying ground in the Hearst House. You could do an exhibit on farm tools and farm pictures and some of that in the Hearst House, another time. And yet another time you could do the ice tools and all of the ice business, you could do that in there too. The point is that it becomes an additional exhibit gallery
Yeah,
for things that would appropriately be done there. And then you'll be less likely to do an ice exhibit, for instance, in the Bullet House, if you've got that outdoor museum
yeah.
place to
Would
use.
you, I
I think-
wonder if, I was trying to think of how to sort of get some traction on this whole, of all these things that
Yeah.
we think are part of
They-
our vision.
Yeah,
And I was thinking, Barry, with your background too, I wonder if you might be willing to just put together not a great big long thing, but a brief thing that might be part of a more developed vision statement about that, as he calls it, the synergy, about the different buildings and things that you envision could be done in them and between them. And, let your mind go a little bit and, just let your imagination go a little bit. Because I think some of the things we can talk about as a group and some of the things that might be easier to ask somebody who obviously shows some interest
To
and
work out.
knowledge,
Yeah.
to just come in with
And then we can just-
write something up, try it, and we'll
Produce a
play with it.
proposal on that.
And as I'm listening to you talk about this, it seems as though
Yeah.
you have a lot of knowledge about all those buildings, and even some of the houses in the neighborhoods, and
Oh, yeah.
and it might be interesting to just put something together. I mean, I think it's nice to have a very brief vision statement, a more developed mission statement, and then maybe a really developed mission. I don't,
One of the things that he talked about, well, it's very clear to me
or vision.
with this thing that he did, that he wants a more developed one,
A more
a
developed,
more developed
Yes,
vision
yeah.
statement than what we produced before.
yeah.
We were trying to keep it brief, and I don't know if we can keep it that brief. But I do think that in terms of talking about how you're gonna use different spaces in the house, along with that is you extend that with how you're gonna use the other spaces, kinds
Right.
of things you do in the town hall instead.
Right.
because he's really saying here, the museum is all these things.
Yeah.
Is all these things,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, so
And-
that's-
And we've always conceded,
Yeah,
seen it. I mean, for instance, if we're gonna do military, we almost always do it in Memorial Hall.
yeah, yeah,
More than in the house, for instance.
yeah.
So-
The other thing that we could do is what we've done before, and that is have each of us put our thoughts down about if we wanted to start, let's say, with the town center and the synergy among all the buildings. I mean, we have a lot of different aspects of this we have to look at, but we could all each put down some thoughts on it and then bring them all together. I don't know if that works as well or not as well as having one person just really go and play with it.
Well, in this particular case, I think we've got to limit ourselves to the town-owned properties.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, That makes sense.
as being the place, and the ones that we've got some reasonable control in.
Yeah,
That we can say that for instance, we're gonna use the Bullet House full-time.
yeah,
We're gonna use the Hearst House seasonally because of
yeah,
weather matters.
yeah,
Not gonna use it in the winter. We're gonna use the town hall when it's available and for a specific big exhibit, something that's too big to do. I mean, like when we did the big clothing
Yeah.
shows. And we're gonna use offer a program that we expect to have a lot of people come to, like we did with Donald Featherstone.
yeah,
And we're also gonna, and military stuff, we're generally gonna use put in Memorial Hall because of its connection.
yeah,
And that's one of the reasons why then we don't have to worry about doing military in the Bullet House.
yeah, yeah,
And there are various other things that we can, the other thing is that just because of Memorial Day, for instance, I would like to have the Bullet House open too, but I know we won't get the traffic there that we hopefully would get in Memorial Hall. But all of those things based on that. But we should be able to come up with a statement about all of that that'll work.
yeah,
But I definitely expect to use the upstairs, the Bullet House, for exhibit purposes. It's just that we're gonna have to have the things that are exhibited up there, we have to do photos or a video that somebody downstairs that in a wheelchair can watch to get some of the experience of what's up there.
yeah.
And that's part of the accessibility thing.
Do you, well, Barry, why don't you address that paragraph and try to make it hang together? And then if after we read it, if we have a bright idea, we could toss it out too, but I think it would be better for one person to write it.
Yeah, and to think about it, and I still like the whole notion too of maybe being able to include in that the chronology. Who was there first? I mean, what building is the oldest, and I think of it almost like people, and then along came the thus and so building. So I mean, there's just a lot of different ways you can get people to think about the interrelationship
Sure.
between the various old buildings in town.
Yeah.
What do we want to say about funding?
That's a
Funding.
good question. I have to say that, for starters, we're going to have in the other list, the pre-planning phase, he wants us to have a timeline of what's occurred to date. And that timeline of what's occurred to date is also going to include expenditures to date. Because that demonstrates both society raising money and people giving contributions. Because we've gotten, a fair amount, not anything close to the $200,000 we've got now, but we've already spent $100,000 on it that basically was provided by the Historical Society, one way or another.
Well,
Not by grants, but mostly by donations or fundraisers.
Right. Well, one of our sources is the society
Yeah,
and their fundraising events.
yeah,
And not only the fundraising events, but just outright support from their, operations and building, the building fund, I guess the building fund is based on fundraising activities. Is that right?
and contribution,
And
and
actual,
donations.
and donations, so it's both, fundraising events and actual donations
Yeah,
to the building fund. So the society is one avenue, and has been our most stable one and loyal one. We are a 501c3, so that's built into the donation aspect of the society. The grants, we have never applied for a grant for the Bullard House.
Until we applied for mitigation money.
Okay, that was considered a grant. I
Yep.
guess I didn't think of it that way. So,
Well, the selectmen saw it that way.
okay, so the mitigation funding was a grant. And we have annual CPA.
I wouldn't call them annual, even though they have been for 2 years, but CPA, we've got 2 CPA appropriations.
You know, that can change
Okay,
every
so
year.
so
We get a
CPA
little bit, though, I think.
CPA funding,
There's a certain amount that gets divided up.
yeah,
Um,
it just
you-
doesn't necessarily have to be designated for the Bullard
Right.
House, but
Right.
it is a source of funding,
Yes.
and we've used it already.
Yeah.
I mean, we haven't implemented it, but we've been awarded it. So the CPA, the mitigation funding, which is considered a grant, the society, which fundraises and
Donations.
gives donations.
One of the times we were getting donations, we had them give them to the commission. And that's how we have the donation account in the town coffers. Most of that has been spent. There's a little, $500 or $600 left of it, $400 or something of it. But,
I think it's 700, actually.
yeah, but 100 of it came in more recently.
Yes.
And, I mean, we can check that out, but the point is, we did have some that came in that way. Ultimately, I came up with the idea that I'd rather have it come in through the society, because then maybe the society can do it and have less hurdles to jump over in
That's right.
regard to the
Right.
state restrictions on how you fund everything.
Yeah. You might, this is sort of off the track, but I just want to mention that we still don't have our sales tax exemption for the society.
That's correct.
And I think we need to bring that up on August 9th when the society meets. And I don't want to say any more about it because it's not the commission's problem.
Yeah.
I just want to mention it since it is one of our funding sources. When we spend money, we don't want to pay sales tax, that's all. Is there any other kind of funding? I mean, could be other grants and that are available.
Yeah, I think we need to probably learn more about what kinds of
Right.
grants, or
And-
get on mailing lists and things like that to be
Yeah,
informed about.
And
grants.
definitely the MHC
Yes,
is going to be in the works.
yeah.
So the MHC grant,
And we could, something like the Central Mass Regional Planning are the kind of people, their job is to really facilitate the work that communities all around are trying to do. And so having them inform us about grants that are available. Central Mass
Oh,
Regional
Central Mass
Planning,
Regional, yeah.
maybe developing a little more of a relationship so that we can periodically find
So
out
they
from
know,
them what they know
yeah,
about other
network with
sources
us
of
for
money.
that.
Well, there's another thing that we've talked about, and have we got somebody to go see there?
Yes. Trish Settles.
To go, oh, yes, yeah. We were talking with them about the possibility of having them help us actually write the grant when the time comes, because it's going to be a lot of work, and I'm
Oh, sure.
not terribly familiar with it. But I think anytime there's something that we need some information on or some help with, they're a very good group to go to. Trish Settles is her name.
And the other young lady, Carrie,
Carrie, I forget Carrie's last name.
What's the other thing? Oh,
her
Carrie.
first name is Carrie, but we can't remember.
Kerrie, something like that.
I don't know how she spells it.
I've got it somewhere in this
Yeah.
notebook.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he also, I mean, this is, I'm not sure I'm pretty sure you don't put this in the statement, but he's suggesting that we utilize Chris Beard, is it? The person
yeah.
who's
Yeah.
the Tremont,
And the other is.
Chris Beard, yes,
I mean,
engage
the
Chris
other
Beard.
person that is available to us is Jen Doherty with the
Yeah,
Mass
in
Historic
fact, I have
Museum.
to send her
who's the Doherty?
Jen.
she's the circuit rider person. She's the outreach
She's
to
the Chris
local
Skelly
commission.
of the present.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the hard thing for me in relation to these great offers of assistance, which are going to be very helpful, is we're not quite sure where we're at right now and what to ask for. I think as soon as we get involved with that grant, we're going to know exactly what kind of help we need. But in terms of the actual work on the building and design and all of that, I still feel a little bit lost as to when do they say go, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's what Dan is going to
trigger.
help us with. And I'm probably a little impatient and kind of trying to get ahead of the game a little bit.
Well, you don't want to
But-
get caught short.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and we do have to really look at timeline. I wonder if he's going to look at that with us fairly soon, so that we know when we really do have to start being aware of what's due for the grant and all that kind of stuff.
Well, we have to keep it
Yeah,
right here because it's
Yeah.
one of our sources of funding. So
yeah, definitely.
Well, and the other thing is that we've already set up a plan for synergy between our CPA money and the Preservation Projects Fund from the state. And that one is gonna be the seed money and the matching money.
that's right.
That's the seed money and the matching money that relates to that state grant. So, we have to see what is doable. Another thing that we need to get out of people there is a sense of how big a state grant we could hope to get.
Mhm.
Because, it may be that $100,000
Is unrealistic.
is
Yeah,
very unlikely.
yeah.
Well,
What
especially when you-
Janet is seeing.
Yeah, I mean,
is
I've
about
looked
50
up, you can look up
50K.
online what they've awarded in the last few years.
Yeah,
And I think there was one, maybe I'm thinking of last year, or maybe in the whole set of 2 or 3 years. It seems like there was one that went up as high as 60,000, but the others, they topped off at 50, and then a lot of smaller ones. So,
Do you-
yeah, I'd be very surprised. I would never stop trying to get 100,000.
yeah.
But that doesn't seem to be quite the way they've been thinking in the past. I think they've been trying to spread it out a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well,
Did we reconsider the pre-development grant, or are we beyond that?
When he mentioned that, my thought was that we were beyond it, partly because we do have these people in the wings who are willing to help us with some things. I looked at the pre-development grant. I don't know if you've read that one or not.
Not lately.
It's worth reading that one. And you have to kind of, it's aligned with the development grants, so you have to sort of sort out and find where the pre-development information is. But it felt to me,
Like what we're doing now
Yeah.
is what you would
Yeah.
do with that kind of
now,
money.
yeah. Now, on the other hand, if we wanted to switch and do pre-development, I think that does probably give you a little leg up. If you've worked hard to pre-develop, they probably are more apt to take you seriously for getting the other grant, but I
Well,
think the
and-
other thing that we have kind of hanging over us just a little bit is we've been at this for so long, and the community, I think, needs to see us getting started. And, well, we have started. People have done a ton of work in the Bullard House, but getting
Yeah.
organized and being able to tell people what's going on, and I'm a little reluctant to think of postponing it yet again.
Okay, so I just threw it out there so I'd be
Yeah,
clear in
yeah.
my
I will
head.
make
read
this
that.
statement about the pre-development grant. I don't know enough about what you would get that money for, but if there's things that we need to spend money on in order to do some of these other things in the early part of the plan, of the master plan, then that would be that might be where you get some of that funding.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, it starts, as you already were indicating, it starts to build your relationship with the State Historical Commission.
Yeah.
And therefore, if you're gonna come in for a more substantial grant coming along, if you have a smaller grant that helps you along with, $5,000 or something, you have a chance to produce a track record for yourself in doing it, administering it, getting it done, and reporting it into them, which is helpful. And it builds your reputation
Yeah.
with them for a bigger ask later. And being as how we've had very little of that, we've done very little with them, it would, from my point of view, it could be a politic way to approach something. If we can identify expenses in the earlier stages here that we need to do, that money could be put to it.
Yeah,
One of the great problems is all the things you can't put it to it.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
really, I mean, you
Yeah.
can use the pre-development for architectural services, but we actually have money for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've
So,
been kind of
and I
gearing
think
ourselves that way.
I think that's the major thrust of whatever you would get out of that.
Yeah.
So
Um,
maybe we are beyond that.
It might not hurt, though, to take to go online, and you can find this, a description of what you have to do in the application instructions. This one is still round 28. I still hadn't, last time I looked, I still hadn't seen the information for round 29.
It's too soon.
Well, it is, but round 30 is the one we're going for. So round 29 has already started. I can't remember when round 29 has their due date for the project, but or even for the application. It's
Right.
coming up, but I would have
Well,
thought,
well,
It's March
It would have
23.
been March of this year, wasn't it?
That was for 28.
yeah, that's 28. and
All right,
then-
it comes up every year in
Yeah.
that same time period.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
it's 28 was this year, then 29 is next year,
That's
and
right.
30 is the year
Yeah.
after.
Yeah, but
Because-
that's for the due date, that's not, and for the award, maybe it's for the awarding of it.
Yes, but that
And-
means that you get the awards in June, and you start spending it in July or something.
Yeah.
And then you have a year to
Yeah,
spend
You have a
it.
year to
Yeah.
spend it.
and that would be,
Tw-
when you finish the project, would be 30, I believe. That's what they call that year, I think.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
So
be-
it was funny, because when Dan said 30, that you caught that, he was surprised when I said that the grant we're going for now would be completed in 2030.
2025.
Oh, 2025, yeah, 2025. Did I say 30 to him?
I don't know.
At 2025,
No.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I meant.
Yeah.
And he seemed a little surprised, and I was wondering if it was,
Well,
of-
we've got to say to him,
yeah,
we've been concerned that we wouldn't be able to be ready to put one in for next March.
yeah,
And therefore, we thought in terms of going in the following year.
right.
But,
I think you did express that concern.
Yeah,
I think she did express
Yeah.
that concern.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
definitely. Because it's always so surprising how many steps there are. it stretches way out the times for all these due dates for things. And
Yeah.
it takes a lot longer to get through it all than
Well, we
one
need,
might
we need
realize.
to address the fourth thing that he
Yes.
is hoping we will put into our vision statement, which is staffing. But I think that's a simple statement that we that we don't expect. I don't think we have the expectation to have a paid staff person for a good long time.
Well,
If-
you think about 19 Carter,
Yeah,
and
it just happened.
it's just now that she's
Yeah.
getting a staff person.
Yeah,
But
that's
loads of
that's 5
volunteers.
years.
Right,
Yeah.
loads of volunteers, and I think
Yeah.
that's a good model for us to be aware of. And so figuring out what kind of volunteer activities we could introduce and encourage people to participate in.
Do you want, I could work on the staffing
Okay,
part. I mean, to me, it's only like one sentence, 1 or 2 sentences.
so,
I don't know what to say about that.
Barry's gonna do number 2.
Do you not want to include it?
Well, I think we've got to include some statement about it, even if it's volunteers.
Yeah, well, that's what I was thinking myself.
Could we put the staffing and the outreach there? He doesn't have outreach on here, but that's already one of our goals. He didn't have to add it because it's already in there. I see staffing in terms of volunteers to be locked very closely with
Outreach.
outreach.
Yes,
and
that's what I was thinking when I
and
was
publicity and all of that
trying to
stuff.
visualize a statement.
And I wouldn't mind working on that if you want me to.
Okay,
Okay.
I think that we've always planned this in terms of it being done with volunteers. And Lord's sake, if 19 Carter can be run with volunteers, then this can be run with volunteers.
yeah, but she's the queen of,
Well, she just hired her first staff person.
Yes,
Yeah, Kate.
finally.
Yeah, and it's
What's
what,
that
5
staff
years?
person going to do?
She's running the
actually,
show.
it's Kate Bliss.
Hmm?
Kate Bliss. Kate
Yeah,
Bliss, do you know her?
Yeah.
She's been a realtor, but not a terribly active one
Yeah.
for quite a while. And she manages the volunteers. And she's just
Yeah.
getting her, her legs under her for doing that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a big job.
it's a managerial job, there's no
Yeah.
question about it.
and Evie's been doing that herself up to this
Yeah.
point.
She's been managing the volunteers, yeah.
So that's one piece she's gonna work on getting off of her plate.
Yeah. That is Kate's main job.
Yeah.
She's there 20 hours a week. And it's a little flexible. She did the concert on Saturday night. She was there for part of the
Would you say
volunteer.
19 hours a week?
20,
20 hours a week?
yeah, 20 hours a week. 25? Wait a minute.
All right.
It might be 25 hours. I've got her salary and her hours mixed up.
June,
I
which
have
of
to
these
say,
two-
I have to say, when you talk about staffing, and you gotta talk about open time, I've never seen this place as being open many hours a week.
What place?
Bullet House. I've never seen this as something to be open many hours a week. I
No,
really
I think
would
that's true. I
stick
think
to the
that's
2 or 3
At
hours
least
that
certainly to
we're
start, yeah.
playing with now. And beyond that, it's by appointment. All of which means more management. But other than that, yeah, we can be open by appointment at other times.
Yeah, in events. Yeah.
Because that's when you have to do it, because that's when, somebody may be able to come.
Yeah,
But as far as regular open hours, we're gonna be open, if we are open for 3 hours, 4 days a week, you're not gonna have anybody there most of that time.
Yeah, but it's not just being open, it's keeping the place maintained.
Oh, sure.
It's the grounds and the
Cleaning,
cleaning
And special
inside.
events that
I
you
mean,
might have
19
there.
Carter has a cleaning service.
Yeah,
There have been times when the only person who cleaned it was Evie.
yeah,
But she, you can only do that for so long.
for
Yeah.
a limited time.
And then, she needs, she grows into other spaces.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I remember doing cleaning right from the
That's
start.
right, that's
But
right.
it was cleaning the bathrooms, cleaning, you had specific jobs. But yeah, the overall responsibility fell onto
Yeah.
her. Yeah,
Now, the volunteers take care of, food
Yeah.
and dishes.
yeah,
But the place itself, especially
Yeah.
the bathrooms and the kitchen area as a whole,
yeah,
there's a person who comes and does that now.
yeah.
Yeah. Maybe not, could come more often, but we've settled on
But it grew into that.
Yeah.
Like you were saying, it wasn't
Yeah.
something that
you
was
can't,
necessarily
yeah,
completely predictable.
yeah, that's right.
Yeah. So let me just review this here. Barry's going to do some thinking about the
Campus.
the campus, right?
Yep.
He'll be the president, the college president. You're going to do. What did we decide you were going to?
I can do funding if you
The
want.
funding,
Yeah.
okay. And I'm going to look at staffing and throw outreach in there because I
Yes.
think it has a lot to do
Yes,
with
it does.
that.
yeah.
And
And accessibility,
I'll handle access.
because
Okay.
he's pretty much outlined that anyway. And,
Yeah, but I can I can be
you
more
can-
specific based on what we've planned right along.
okay,
At some point, we need to have him come down here and go through the house,
yeah,
because he's only been in it once, and that was some years ago. And it was really just to give him an idea of what was there, because he was
Right.
working on the town hall project. And, a few of these things, I could explain to him a lot better in person, in the place, than you can. I know we can't have him come down here a lot, but I'm wondering whether we need to have him come down
well,
here
if he's
once.
got a time when he was going to be here for something else.
Is
maybe.
Well,
the time he's
he
gonna be
doesn't
down-
live here. He lives in Maine, and he's still a part of Mogul, which has a Harvard office.
Yeah.
But Mogul is now merged with DiStefano in Portsmouth. So I bet when he goes, the closest he's going to be to us is probably Portsmouth, not Harvard.
Well, we could do a video. I mean, it's not the same as being in the
Right.
atmosphere of it.
Well, I
but-
think he would come at least once. But I think we would have to,
It's gotta be organized when he's gonna be down here for
Yeah,
something else.
for-
Well, he may be in Boston for things at times
yeah,
too.
or
and
if
that's
he's
not that
if
far.
he's in Portsmouth,
Yeah.
if he goes to the Portsmouth office, maybe he can build us in. Portsmouth is about an hour and 15 minutes from here. I know that, because,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
So, would you say our goal for the meeting tonight is to
well, we can,
work on the vision?
Well-
what about the exterior and the interior and the
Yeah.
responsible design? Can we just go through that? Want to just read it quietly to ourselves?
The responsible design thing is, yeah, that's just stuff about the way the world is now.
Okay,
In other words, you gotta be
conservation,
sensible, long-term, conservation-wise.
community health,
Yeah.
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
So that's,
I'll take that one.
Well, I
I'm
don't think we have
yeah.
to, I don't know that we have to do something much with that.
I'd like to just read
Yeah, we'll take
the
a minute and
exterior
read, yeah.
improvements, just take a minute to go
Yeah.
through that.
Yeah.
Um, Is there anything objectionable?
In the
Well,
exterior?
I'm writing on the in the margin about no plastic. Tyvek,
Well, they talked too about the visible, I don't know if it was in this or if it was more in
building
the.
materials not allowed. Is that only
Yeah.
visible building material?
Well, I'm trying to decide if I saw that um, in the regulations or not, but it, what the grant will pay for. I think if it doesn't show, but it's required for the structural support and that sort of thing, I think that is allowed.
Well, of course it's allowed. You gotta be
Um,
able to put insulation in.
Yeah, so wasn't that what you were just asking a minute
Well,
ago?
Maybe we need that verified.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what he's saying, but I don't know. I mean, is he just talking about what people can see?
Yeah, the visible. I
Yeah.
think in the standards, there's a statement about what's visible and not.
That's where
Who
I'm
has
thinking
this-
I got
yeah,
it.
Who has the oh, you do, Barry?
I-
You have the standards book?
Yes, I have the standard.
I think if you look,
I can't go with that.
I think there's a statement in there about visibility. and-
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll look at that.
Yeah.
I'll review stuff that might relate to this.
It
and that.
seems-
So
to me-
other than that, I like the way it's worded. The first paragraph is worded.
Uh-huh.
And the second paragraph is just, tools to make that happen.
Yeah.
So aside from just verifying the use of those, plastic and vinyl and composites, aside from verifying that can be used if it's not visibly distracting, I think I'm all set with it. Is
Yeah.
everybody else okay with it? I'm gonna read the interior
I'd like
improvements.
to spend some more time with these and a little more thought, but yes, I think it's on the right track for
Yeah,
sure.
Interior improvements, I'm gonna read that to myself here. Yeah, well, here's here's a statement that speaks to what's visible to the public.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So that's,
that comes up in a couple of different places in each paragraph.
yeah. So I don't see anything objectionable or,
No, I was trying to think if, about that whole question of different parts of the house being allowed different rules, depending on whether you're in that back room and it's a room where, I think Dan dealt with that. He talked about that, if you're going to be serving refreshments, you need a sanitary place that meets standards, modern standards of food safety. But at the same time, you want it to have the feeling of the
Yes, he
era
did.
that you're choosing
He
to
did.
represent
Right.
there.
You
So I
wouldn't-
mean, if you were showing that
Yeah.
kitchen, the year that it was actually added on, you want it to reflect that kind of a kitchen, but clearly you're gonna have to adhere to modern
Yeah.
requirements. And I think that's, I'm not sure if those kinds of things come through in here, but,
Well, it says, except for modern plumbing, life safety, or lighting equipment needed for operations.
And it does say here, different spaces in the house may be individually detailed or appointed to capture a specific time frame of the property's history. And that's what I was just more or less alluding to, I think.
Well, I think I don't know, I think the statements are fairly open-ended and don't ensnare us into.
No, I don't think they do either.
We
Yeah.
have a statement in our preservation plan. The building as we know it today gives the overall impression of a colonial-era lean-to house, though it was mostly constructed in the early federal period. This impression may prove well worth keeping and elaborating upon as part of the interpretive program for the building. Actual work and construction processes should be undertaken with this in mind. And that the impression of age, even if it's not.
Right. Yeah.
And
where it
we
can
didn't
be.
get as much of that into the entrance room as I wanted. As we
Right,
got into
right.
it, and this one guy did this work, and that one did
Yes.
that work.
Yes.
We did not get all of the things I'd hoped to get in there in terms of the impression of
Yeah.
the tradition. For instance, I wanted across the back the impression of a big header beam going across there. But, you know, like you have in the front rooms with the cased beams. Now, you don't have to have a beam, but I want the casing.
Right.
And we
right.
could
Yeah.
still add some things like
Yes.
that
I
if we
was just
decided
thinking,
to.
it's not
But
a
at the
lost
same
cause.
To
Yeah.
me, it's not essential in terms of when you go in that room, once it's done, and you have things in it, it's not gonna feel like a new room.
No. No.
It's gonna feel like it's in an old house.
Yeah, well, the height of the ceilings, for one thing.
Yeah.
Is just, you know, because my house
Yeah.
is like that too. and
It's still
not
gonna give
old,
you the
but-
impression.
Yeah,
And we've already made the recesses to put the lighting in and that kind of stuff, and that's part of what he's already alluded to. So I don't, that's something, I mean, that's a concept we've had right along. And
do you want to incorporate that?
I might think about putting some part of that statement into
Into the,
Which one's
into
that,
this
the
stuff.
interior?
Yeah.
into the interior improvements?
Okay.
One of the things is, a lot of what he's done here is so general.
Yeah.
And at least in a few cases, I'd like to creep in
Yes.
some things that are a little more specific so that it feels like it's specific to this property.
I like that idea.
Okay,
But yes, I mean, I'm not unhappy with in general what's
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
well, can.
The other thing I'll say is this, as we sit right now, the West Parlor, that, for my purposes, is a finished room until they do something like jack the house up, and then they'll wreck it. Has got all kinds of things that are not visible,
Yeah.
but here and there's this and there's this and there's the, different places in the room. You got wallboard on the inside of the plastic, because that's what Hawkins put there years ago. And we determined to leave it there until we could get the place insulated.
Yeah.
And that's part of what he was doing when he put it there, was as a way to help to insulate the outside walls. I'm hopeful we can get the insulation put in, but right now, I don't really want to tear out the wallboard, because it means you're tearing off the wallpaper and you gotta start over.
Right.
And the room is basically finished and fine, except for a few repairs that need to be
The
made.
ceiling is taking a beating.
Yes,
Yeah.
the ceiling, well, there was a coating on the ceiling, a non-historical coating on the ceiling. And we got it all off on the front panel. And the next panel, we scraped and worked on it, but it seemed like it was good and solid. And so we left some of it on there. And now we're living with the
Paying-
problem
paying
is,
for
we
it.
should have got rid of it all when we were
Yeah,
doing it.
yeah.
So at some point, we're gonna have to get the rest of that off. But other than that, mostly that room's still in good shape. Depending
Yeah.
on what gets done otherwise.
Yeah.
If they end up destroying it in the process of doing some of these other jobs, well, then it's down the tubes.
Did we want to cover either any of these other accessibility we've already talked about?
I think we've
No,
co-
I think we've covered that
Yeah,
part.
I
I think
think-
we've covered
yeah.
that document.
I was thinking I might have a crack at interior improvements also, just to, add my own perspective, which was the time I spent at Sturbridge and, practically living in those rooms. And I don't know if anything in my brain would come through to be useful here, but I think if I start thinking about it, there might be
Yeah, think about it, and
Yeah.
if you have,
some things that I saw them
Yeah.
do and
so
hidden things.
for our
like-
meeting with Dan next Thursday, what do we?
When are we meeting with him, next Thursday?
the-
A week
The
from?
4th. So what do we want to have ready for him so that we make good use of his time? I think we need to have our vision statement expanded to
Yeah.
include the 4 things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And we've all been assigned a little part of that. And then we're pretty happy with the project vision. We just need to verify that it's the visible elements that require authentic materials.
yeah,
And Barry is going to will deal with the accessibility.
Yeah, I don't have to do much to what
Yeah,
he's done there,
okay.
a little bit, not much.
And Janet and Barry both want to
I'll just think of-
be more specific about the interior improvements
Yeah.
based on the preservation plan and anything that Janet, you might have in your background that would fit.
all right.
The responsible design approach is pretty much we don't really have to deal with that,
I
I
don't think
guess.
we have to deal with that.
Okay, and exterior improvements, it's just,
Might be interesting to think about, I wouldn't mind doing this either, to think about other things besides just the exterior of the building. But, gardens, things that would be on the exterior, we would also be interpreting and talking about outdoor.
the
things.
backyard and the
Yeah.
front yard
Yeah,
and the side yard.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe we can think
Well,
about
yeah, you
that.
could talk about some outside things that might relate to it.
Yeah,
I think that as far as the finish on the house is concerned, it is severely plain, and I don't know of any reason to mess with that.
to
Yeah.
discuss it.
No.
We'll probably end up with new clapboards where we haven't
Yeah.
already put them on,
Yeah,
because they'll hold the paint better.
yeah.
I mean, the problem with the old ones is you just
Yeah.
have to keep paint,
And I do
paint, paint.
I do specifically remember them talking about that, probably in relation to the grant, that has to be allowed.
Yeah,
That.
Oh, yeah.
Protection.
well,
for
first of
safety
all,
and- Yeah,
all of the clapboards on the outside of that house have been replaced in the 20th century.
yeah,
There are no
Right.
early ones. There's some kind of black building paper underneath all the clapboards, which means that they were off at some point and probably all replaced in the 1940s or something. And the result is, it's not like we've got to worry about losing any of those.
yeah,
And what Dick did when he did the end toward the town hall and they put the new clapboards on there look at how the paint has
Yeah.
lasted.
Yeah,
It gets a little less sunlight there, yes, but at the same time, that paint just lasts and lasts and looks good. And it wears out, and we've had to redo it on the other sides. So I think that it's valid from my point of view to replace all the clapboards with new ones that are pre-primed
well,
and
in
stuff
the
like
end,
that.
probably
Because
save
it
money.
just means it's gonna be more serviceable and hold up for the,
Yeah,
if we can keep it painted in the future, they won't get so worn and it'll hold up. This sheet, the annotations, are these your notes?
Those are Janet's.
oh, yeah, that was just, as we were talking with Dan,
Yeah,
he would add things that weren't on
yeah,
that other sheet that he gave us, you know which one I mean, this one right here.
okay.
He would add some things.
So
and
these are other things he sort of
that
added.
he added, or that one of us piped up and added. You
Okay.
may recognize something that you said. I just thought there were some other parts to the discussion that wouldn't show because, you know, he didn't know exactly what else was gonna be added to his conversation, so that's what that is.
No, I've lost mine.
I
I think I put it with the minutes. Maybe that's what it is.
Could be.
I know, I'm very.
Here it is. I got it.
Okay.
I got it.
Under documentation, okay, check with Ross Associates, this is the existing conditions and so forth. Ross Associates did a elevation survey and stuff for things to do with the town hall.
Yeah,
And some of that relates a bit to this, but they wouldn't have really completed it for the Bullet House end once they were done with the part they were doing. But it may be that we're going to have some of that accomplished that way. And one of those things is to deal with drainage. People are always concerned that all the water that comes down the hill comes in the house. It does not, especially on the south end. There's
Yeah.
one little place that he found water, some wet there. And I really think if we did some fussing around, we could take care of it, get rid of that problem for the amount that it is. On the north end, not so much. There may be a need to have a French drain or something around that end of the house.
yeah.
I've thought that for many years. Is there enough evidence to do an archaeological survey?
Yes, I think there is.
Well, the question is how wholesale, I think we do have to. The question is how wholesale does it have to be? And we had that cost estimate for $12,000. I don't know what that was based on.
That was based on a perimeter. Carl and Elaine asked for pictures of the Bullet House, so Marty went down and he did a perimeter views. He did the whole perimeter of the building.
Yeah,
And that's what the archaeological firm had to look at to base their estimate. Whether or not that would take place, I don't know. But, I don't know. I think it's possible to have an archaeological firm that's much more local than he came up with.
Then who came up with Ross?
Carl.
Oh, Carl.
it's somebody in Connecticut.
Yeah, it was, I
Well, I mean, he
mean, we
probably
have
knows
people
somebody.
right here in
Yeah.
Metro West that,
Yeah.
that do this work. And it'd be nice to, have someone more local.
Well, June, can you look into that?
Sure.
I mean, you're the archaeological person.
Yep.
I don't know what we've got for issues. Obviously, around any old house like that, you could have stuff.
Yeah.
And with what that one's been through, who knows what could be there.
And who knows what was in that foundation that you talk about on the north
Yeah.
side?
Well,
if-
yes, yeah, I
what-
mean,
Yeah, whatever foundation work they do, we'd have to have some kind of salvage
Yeah,
take place. But the really interesting thing would be to explore your 13-foot remnant there.
we had those all dug up once. I've seen the inside of those. What else could be around it beyond, who knows, I don't know. And I'm particularly interested in doing the surface enough so we can find what might have been the back wall of that addition. Because we think the house was one room deep at that point. When Dick had the site off the house, we see the mortises for
Yeah.
beams to
The
go in
extension, yeah.
at the back of that front room. So I'm thinking that addition was that depth. But what's there underground that would indicate what that might have sat on? Because in the area right behind what is now where the cellar stairs go down, was the support for a big chimney, a big cooking fireplace, etc.
right,
It was huge.
yeah,
And the wall of that is what extends out in this long skinny thing that goes out 13
Yeah.
more feet from the house.
huh,
And then there's whatever behind that, but I don't think it was ever, any of the rest of that was ever excavated. I think they just had surface stones or something with it sitting on
Now,
it.
that would be something that we wouldn't have to do necessarily as part of this Bullard project, isn't it?
No, it's part of it.
But,
In order to
I mean,
work
you-
on the foundation of the house,
yeah,
I agree with you, except we've still got to develop handicap parking, either by a ramp coming down from the parking lot behind, or by some kind of a parking space next to the house. And well, we're gonna disturb this area anyway, and I think we've gotta solve the issue of what could be there now, if we're gonna do this. I'm
That-
not sure what funds
would be
we
an
can use to
exciting
pay for
thing.
that $12,000.
Well, we have about 11,000 in the
Mitigation money,
mitigation.
yeah.
I was thinking too that what's neat about a project like that is it's an outdoor thing.
Yeah.
And so it's got a lot of visibility. I mean, they can't see anything that's going on inside the house.
That's
But
right.
it's got a lot of visibility and it could be people coming
It
to
says somebody's
watch.
doing something,
Yeah,
I agree.
yeah.
There's some value to that. Let's just run through the rest of the things on this sheet. Articulate programs we want to do and identify equipment, going to space equipment on the grounds for these programs. All right, the planning,
Some of these things we've talked about before. I just wrote them down and
various
he
spaces.
didn't have
we'll
them.
see.
His.
Okay, yeah. Analyze operational use, okay. All right, I think those things under the planning thing are already in what we've either talked about tonight or that I was thinking about in terms of doing anyway, so
Yeah,
that's all right. Design and engineering, phase 1 is visionary scoping, phase 2,
I just like the way he said that. He broke it down in his,
Yeah.
but I thought that was very clear.
Yep.
that's, okay, all right. And financial planning, yeah, okay.
I can
Oh, yeah,
think more about that
Yeah,
for
there's some
my
stuff there,
for my
right.
funding thing.
That, yeah, I think that the founders group thing, I have no idea what you can do with that. The Historical Society is old enough, so the founders are all dead.
Yeah.
And,
It's not funny, I suppose.
Yeah, well, we could, yeah.
where we have I mean, one of the things is the Historical Society and the collection and so forth is something that's been going on since 1950. And this is a much broader development, but it's the kind of thing that all of that's been in preparation for.
Yeah.
And, but growing the volunteer base, and I would say even more than that, the donor base.
Yeah.
I'd put the word donor right next to that line,
Okay.
because that's, growing the donor base is a very important thing. And there are people that I think we could get into donor that could be significant. I mean, we know other things that are happening in the town that have got a new big donor because we've got a new big donor that's in town now.
Yeah.
And the outreach thing, that needs to be going on as we're doing stuff. I guess I'll say this, as we can develop some of these things that we're doing, talking about tonight, we need to figure out ways to share some of that.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's just with the Historical Society people, but just to broaden the people that know something about what's going on here.
Well, we did, Janet and I talked about a couple of things the other day on the telephone. One was, these are really simple things, but in the next Powder House News, we could have a paragraph in there about this planning that we're doing.
Yeah.
And who's helping us, and maybe a picture or two. I don't know what kind of picture we could use, but whatever. That's a really simple thing that's already in place. All we have to do is give them the content and something visual. The other thing was, I mean, we have a society Facebook page, which could blog our progress. We would need to give Rebecca the little paragraph or whatever every once a month or.
On the mailer of the newsletter that we've used some of the time, I've had a little sketch, which I did from the architect's sketch of the end of the house toward the town hall, minus the ugly dormer. And you could use that with a box and a paragraph
Okay,
to throw in Powder House News.
okay,
And then you'd have a pattern. At some point, you may have a picture or something else to use, but that would give you something
to start with.
to start with. And if you have that pattern, then perhaps we can get that in there every other issue or every issue or
Yeah,
something.
well, it's every 2 months anyway,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, that
So,
we could get something in about it there that makes more people aware of something that's happening.
We can also talk to people at History Matters about what we're doing.
Yeah,
That's a different people come to that, and I think there would be a lot of interest.
And that's the whole social media thing, and it would be kind of neat to somebody who's sort of passionate about one of those forms of social media, who might be a young person, and would say, yeah, I'll
Yeah.
do.
We
thus
could
and
have
so
an
for you.
Instagram account. On
what I
Instagram
was
is
thinking,
really
people-
visual.
yeah,
They're just really photographs with a caption. It's
No,
not-
I think
yeah.
that you catch some people with each one of those things,
if you'll let me clean out the parlor, get the extra stuff that's been shoved in there, out of there, so we can have that look nice. And straighten up, do a few other things. We could take 2 and 3 and 5 people over there and show it to them.
Do
we
we have
can't-
to have a temporary occupancy to bring them in there?
If you're talking about taking somebody in to show them and it's 1 or 2 people, I don't think you're in trouble.
Okay,
But if you publicize we're gonna go on a tour of the Bullet House, no.
so it's kind of a private
Yeah.
showing.
But if we've got a group at History Matters, it's a few people, we could
We could take.
go
them
for a
over.
walk and go over there.
Yeah.
But if you bill it ahead of time and you get 20 people, no, you
No,
can't, that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
I just say that because
Where would we, yeah,
some of these people, especially the History Matters people, a lot of those people have never been near the place.
no, I actually took Rudiger, the German fellow, and John Stefan, I took them into the first floor one day,
Oh,
because I guess it was Rudiger who was asking me about it.
Yeah.
So rather than put him off, I just said, well, I can show him the first floor.
Yeah.
And we didn't stay long, because, it's, it's kind of cramped down there, but they, and
well, the other thing about it is having the front room cleaned out so the front room is presentable makes all the difference in the world in somebody's impression of the place.
Yeah.
If you've got a bunch of stuff in the middle room, that's one thing, but if you can go in one room and have it really look nice, and if you can have, and the entrance room right now is pretty cleaned up, so it's not too
well, I
bad.
put a few things there,
But I'd like to fix a few things so they look better. And it wouldn't be bad at all to take somebody in. You can see that the kitchen's still got to be done, you can see this, but you can also see that some other things look pretty good. And that just gives people an impression that there's real possibilities.
that's a good idea. I mean, it's effective, very effective. That's how you get donors.
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. And you've got to be able to get donors. And one of the things that does enter into the funding aspect of it is you need grassroots support. I mean, all the money that the Historical Society's put into it is grassroots support.
Yeah.
But we need to have a continuation of that and a plan to move ahead with that kind of stuff too. I might add that if at any point we had a big chunk of money available to us that was not already tied up in the town's massive business, there are other things we can consider. And when he threw in the business of an addition to the
Oh, yeah.
curatorial building,
And that warmed your heart.
yes, that warmed my heart, because I've already had that in mind. But I don't have funding for that now, but if the society had somehow a lot of funds come into its hands, that's something that it might fund, so that we then could increase the good storage space we've got, and that would take some of the pressure off of the house and so on.
Yeah.
At the same time, we're never gonna have space enough to take all the furniture that we've accumulated for the house
Right.
and put it somewhere else. We're gonna have to put some stuff in storage somewhere.
Yeah.
You had mentioned something about that we
Yeah,
might
I
bring it
didn't,
up.
I was going to look up how much, pods cost or containers cost, and I never did get to it before I came here, but it would be useful to have a number.
I also would rather, I'd even look at a off-site storage someplace,
Oh, you mean
storage
like
place,
an
yeah.
actual storage?
I don't, what I'd like is one that's not absolutely unheated.
Do they have such things?
I don't know. Can't answer that. It's like the fire station. If we could turn the heat back on in there so it's 50 degrees instead of 0, I'd be a lot happier with putting stuff
Yeah.
over there.
That's
Now,
fine.
we've not put all the things over there we might, just because it's not heated.
Yeah.
They shut the heat off right about the time we were starting to put stuff in it.
Yeah. Some of the bigger things that are wooden, that are pretty solid, might withstand it. I think about the things that we've taken out of the barn down in Connecticut, after generations of storing them up there. And it's surprising how part of that is that something like a barn that's not closed, it picks up the moisture from the air as well on those, rainy days, and also it's not always just sitting there drying out. But I don't know, maybe just having to sort through and say which things can withstand.
Well, you don't want to put painted stuff and
Right,
finished
yeah.
furniture in places.
But a lot of, there's quite a few things over there that aren't finished, isn't there, in that middle room? Or am I wrong on that? I was thinking there were a number of larger things that
Not much.
downstairs. There's 2 organs in there.
Yeah.
Yes, and we still need to work on getting one of those out.
One
over
of those
time.
came from our house.
Yes,
Which is probably the one you want to get out.
Now,
yes, but Dick always said that was fine.
Yeah,
He said that when he brought it in.
yeah.
And
Yeah, I had really mixed feelings about that. I was surprised that we didn't know, or I didn't know anything about the fact that we were disposing of it. I felt sad for a long time because.
would you like it back?
Well, I don't know. I mean,
that
I
would
would
solve our
consider it.
storage issue.
I would consider it. But what I liked about it is that my great-great-aunt, who lived with us for a number of years, had that same kind of organ. And when we were little tiny kids, we'd sit on her lap, and I remember
Pumping.
because
Yeah.
she'd be pumping.
she'd be
And
pumping.
So, when I got to the house here and there was one of those organs, I said, oh, that's wonderful. So it wasn't that I wanted it, it was just that it brought back
You
those
need to know that came
memories.
from Marlboro and belonged to the Hurleys next door to the post office.
Huh.
And they gave it to Dick.
Oh, yeah,
It hadn't been there a long time.
yeah, yeah.
I think Dick got it, I don't know, when he was 12 or 16 or somewhere in there.
Well, it was there all the time that I was
Yes,
there.
yes, but it wasn't an
Yeah.
ancient, it
Yeah.
wasn't one of the ancient things that was with the house.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And that's why Dick felt he could decide to do
Oh,
something
yeah.
with it if he
Oh,
wanted
yeah,
to.
yeah. No, it
It
was
was
probably a
really-
very
it was
good
really
decision.
his.
Good decision
Um,
on that part. But then, you should see our house will start looking like the Bullard house upstairs.
But the goal with that
Yeah,
is to see if we can find somebody who repairs those.
yeah,
And if we can make a trade of that one for the work on the other one.
yeah. Oh, yeah,
I mean, either one of them would need work.
yeah,
And if we could get the work done on the other one that maybe has a better provenance for Berlin,
yeah.
and we can make a deal with them in that regard so that we
Yeah,
get the other one
we get the
fixed
other
up.
one
And
fixed. We had,
as a result.
Tim and I did a little bit of work on the one that, it's not hard to figure out when you look inside it, how it works.
No,
And we got it, we did a little bit, we took it apart, I remember, and did certain things, not certain things we didn't touch, because we didn't know anything about those things, but, it's a neat little organ, but,
well, that one, the thing that it desperately needs is the fabric connectors that go
Yeah.
down to the pedals. One of the pedals is no longer
Yeah,
operating because
yeah.
the fabric thing broke, the
Yeah.
ribbon of fabric broke. And of course, that just gets old and rotten at some
Yeah,
point.
it has to be that's maintenance.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right, that's
Yeah.
right. And other than that, that one works pretty well.
yeah,
The other one has a couple of problems in it, but I think they're all fixable things.
yeah,
I think they're all fixable things. But somebody that knows what they're doing with them
Right.
could probably
Right.
fix it fine.
yeah, yeah, they're not
And,
too complicated.
but at any rate.
So-
All right, we've got things to do. The other
Yes.
thing that I've got to do is work on that, the timeline of what's occurred to date.
And include the, let's see, the milestones.
The milestones.
And what were we supposed to insert in? the-
Well, I got to include funding stuff in
How it was
that.
funded?
Yeah, and when things were done, and the milestones aren't totally fleshed out, so I need to do a little bit more with some of that.
And that was something
That's an,
that he asked for,
That
is
was-
that what you're saying?
Well, it's
Yeah.
develop a timeline of what's
Oh, I'm
occurred
there.
today.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's in the pre-planning phase.
yeah,
And
yeah, that we have partially in, let's see, determine
let me
conditions.
see what else is on here.
the
Protect and move resources.
the third and fourth items on that identifying repair maintenance work necessary to protect the building and identify repair maintenance items that can be reasonably deferred. I'd even go further than that and say renovation items that could reasonably be deferred. Because I'm scared that if we go this route that he's got laid out right now, we're gonna have to have everything all done before we can open the door. And that may be even more delay.
Well, that's something that we should talk about, is that's where I'm eager to talk timelines, because we might have alternative timelines. One, what if we want to open part of the house and not the whole house? And one, if we want to wait and open the whole house.
Well, if
I think
it's
that's
structurally sound, I would think that we could open the first floor. I mean,
Yeah.
look at 19 Carter.
Yeah,
Yes. We had what, 2 years?
19,
Downstairs?
yeah, at least 2 years, yeah.
That downstairs was open before upstairs.
That's right, yeah.
yes, it was a couple of years, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe a year and a half, I'm not sure, but yeah.
And I also believe that the structural stuff, once the structural stuff is done, I mean, when you're, I think that upstairs would be mostly, decoration and fixing the surfaces and
yeah.
doing the finish and that kind of stuff. And that could certainly be being done while you had downstairs open. At least open some of the time.
That's right, yeah.
Well,
we should talk to him about,
and I still think we can do it better, we'll have better results if we use people that we have available to ourselves for the decoration than if we try to hire people to do it.
yeah, well, the grant doesn't really cover interior finish, does it? Cosmetic things? I don't think it does anyway, does it?
I don't think so either. The interior is pretty limited, I think,
Yeah,
in what they.
yeah, so you would want a lot of flexibility to use other people.
I mean, after the experience we had with what Brenna did in the front room with that fireplace wall was just incredible.
I think
Well,
as
she's
long as,
exceptional, I mean, in those ways, I mean,
I think as long as the people doing those things and making those decisions are willing to do some research and not just say, this looks really about that era, let's
Well,
put this here.
yeah.
You know, to really know what, and maybe we don't care about that. Maybe if it's old fashioned, we'll put it in there, but I think.
No, I
that-
care.
Yeah,
I
I care
definitely
too.
care.
Let me say this. The one time that Mr. whatever his name is today, Dan, was
Okay,
there.
yeah,
He walked in the parlor
yeah,
and looked around and said, "Who told you how to do this?
yeah.
How to decorate the room?" And Mim was shit out. Why we did it? She
Yeah.
And I mean, he just didn't expect
Right.
ordinary little local historical societies to know
Right.
what they were doing.
Well, I think
But
you
she had-
should have viewed his comment as a compliment.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's
And-
just
but
what I
the
did.
point- That's my very point right there.
Just what I did.
Is that she had done a tremendous amount of research. She knew what she was talking about. And I don't think everybody has to do a tremendous amount of research, but once people know that you're sort of decorating a house.
We had determined that we could get, that we had or could get Empire Furniture to do that room with.
Yes,
So therefore, we decorated it with that in mind, as well as the period of the house in mind.
right.
And we picked wallpaper based on that stuff, and so on. And then we did the room. The upstairs, the ballroom, we bought wallpaper with Louise Woodhead years ago, and we've got it still there. It's all still there, fine, to go in that room. And we've got ideas for doing a scene across the arch.
But these are all things that you
And-
knew from research that these were appropriate. It
Oh, yeah.
wasn't just some sort of cool,
Yeah.
old-fashioned wallpaper.
Yeah.
And that's all I think,
I
I mean,
don't-
I think we're agreeing, actually,
Yeah.
that I think we are anyway.
You don't
that
want-
you don't just want to invite anybody to come in and say.
You don't
I
want
could-
cosmetic improvements that aren't vetted.
Right, aren't
Yeah,
vetted, that's the point, yeah.
We
And
have,
we've been lucky that way, because people have known.
we had Grace Stammers, we had Katie Bacon,
Right.
we had Louise Woodhead, we had, I mean, the list goes on and on. And,
But we don't have them anymore.
and we don't have them anymore, but guess what? We still know a lot about what we're doing
We
with it.
do, and we also do have consultants.
And
that
we
we
can
can talk
consult
to.
with somebody if we want to,
Absolutely.
if we
and-
think we need to.
Yeah,
But
I-
honestly and truly, most of the time, we can come up with stuff ourselves. I'm not as confident without all those people to do certain things, but wallpaper choice being one of them. But there are sources to go to for that.
that's right.
And secondly, what we need to do, because of the fact that we change exhibits in these spaces, you don't want to nail them down too perfectly to one period.
No. I
Because
think
you're
that's
gonna
true.
put Victorian furniture in a room sometimes, and you're gonna put earlier stuff in a room sometimes.
Yeah.
And you want the general paint and wallpaper and stuff to be happy with those things. Even though they might not be quite the same as you might do if you were trying to freeze the period.
Right.
But we
That's a
never
good-
wanna
that's a
freeze
good
anything
point.
too much,
No,
cause we
you
gotta
wanna
be
be
able to do different
flexible.
stuff.
Yeah, but that is a good point that I hadn't thought about too, is that one room may change periods. And so you can't rip off the wallpaper every time that happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you try to
exactly.
find something that
Also,
perhaps was long-lasting and splits
And that's
the
what we did
difference.
with the stuff in
Yeah.
the front room.
I think also we need to get out and look at different museums and different
Oh, of course you
spaces.
do.
I haven't done a lot of that.
Do you know, are you familiar with Jane Nylander? Have you?
Yes.
With what?
Jane Nylander?
Yeah.
Jane Nylander. She's such an expert on that stuff. I wouldn't even hesitate to call her, because I worked with, we overlapped, and she's funny. But I'm thinking someone like Jane.
So you knew Jane?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
good. I mean, I've heard her speak.
Yeah,
I don't have a speaking relationship per se.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
I've been to programs she did before she came to Sturbridge, before she came to SPNEA, when she was up in New Hampshire.
yeah,
And so I know about it, and of course, I've got her special book
yeah.
that she did. The
Apparently
Snug-
her latest book is
About parades.
about parades, yes.
Oh, yes.
I don't know if it's her latest, but it's a
Yeah.
recent one.
I think it is.
Yeah. Yeah, but, I think, if there are people like that you can call on the phone and say, or can communicate with and say, this is what we need. We need some wallpaper that's generic enough and yet,
You can
correct
also,
enough.
You can also use, I've seen the use of partitions, so
Yes,
that your background goes with what you're trying to exhibit.
yes,
And you
Oh, sure.
don't have to rely upon the wall
yeah,
as your backdrop.
Oh,
Yeah.
no.
So if you keep your wall fairly neutral, it won't distract.
yeah, that's a
Yeah.
good point too.
Yeah.
Well, of course, we've had basically the plan, and it's in the preservation plan. The only two rooms that are really gonna be domestic rooms are the parlor and the east chamber
Right.
upstairs. And the east chamber I keep set up as a bedroom. It might be a very different period bedroom some of the time, and we've got the stuff to do that with.
Yeah,
But just so that you have a couple of really domestic rooms in the house. But most of the space in the house is gonna be changing exhibits. It has to be in
Yeah.
order to do our
Yeah.
job.
yeah.
Yeah.
We need to talk about all of that too,
Oh, yes.
you know, and.
Yeah, so you can
Yeah,
visualize.
yeah, and bring our own
It's a little more
experiences
fun
to
to
those
think about that
questions,
end of it
right.
too.
The ballroom is a big spacious room, but it's gonna be a multiple exhibit room. It could have one subject at a time, but a lot of the time it's gonna have 2 or 3 exhibits in it.
So do we know what we need to prepare for Dan next Thursday?
Well, my next question, we're gonna meet him for Thursday next week. Do we need to work on our stuff and come back together before we talk to him?
Yeah, I don't think I can because I think we have that closing on Wednesday.
Oh, yeah.
Unless, what's today?
June,
Today's Monday.
I'm not
Today's
sure that I can sort of chronically schedule quite so many meetings and be prepared for them, because this is a very busy time for my job.
Sure it is.
And
Of course
so,
it is.
that would be the only thing, if I can come and just kind of listen, but if we have things that we are trying to prepare. Like, I think what we've committed to preparing now could easily take us until we see
Well, how do we,
Dan
how do
again.
we make sure before the meeting that we're all together on what we've,
Well,
without having a meeting?
my recollection, I don't even remember specifically that he gave us specific homework.
He didn't, but I think
Yeah.
that
We just gave ourselves.
We gave it to
some.
ourselves, good,
Yeah.
okay, I was gonna say, did I miss something?
Um,
Yeah, so,
And we wanna be able
I-
to show him that we've done something.
yeah,
by-
I
in the
would
time
say,
since we-
I would say we've got quite a bit to show him, don't we?
Well, we need to add to our vision statement to accommodate the things that he's suggested.
Yeah,
And that should be accomplished. And then we need to refine that project vision, is that what he called it? So that we add, well, there's more to it than what we did, right?
Well, I'm kinda hoping to meld that into the vision statement. The vision statement's gonna
Okay.
be longer than we had it before, but if that's the kind of stuff we need to put into it, I don't know.
well, he'll tell us, I suppose.
Well,
what
the
he-
accessibility is already part of what we're gonna do.
Yes,
And the exterior improvements and the interior improvements, we didn't really find much fault with that, except we don't wanna get into a box with,
yes,
on
on materials,
materials. So,
on things that don't show.
the only other thing I can think of is that he did say, you've got to keep your documents in a place where we can all access them.
Yeah,
And I don't really know a lot about that, except you can have a Dropbox, or you can have a Google Docs, and
Yeah.
then you can all access those.
Now, are these documents
I'd
that we've,
vote for a Dropbox if we can figure out how to do it. I don't
Okay,
know.
I think my daughter can help me with that.
All right,
And,
so when you say documents, these are documents that we have vetted amongst us, and then
Well-
those are the ones that go in?
you can, even if they're, if you want the whole group to have them as input, then that would even qualify.
I mean, I still am looking at this grant schedule that schedule that I made up and thinking, is he waiting for a while until he talks timeline?
Well,
or-
that's in
I just
here.
don't wanna suddenly get stuck with, oh my gosh, we should have started sooner. I don't want that to happen.
That is in the administrative tasks,
Oh,
isn't
okay.
it?
All right, why don't I?
Where is it?
Yeah, I think you're right.
Include grant
Yeah, yeah.
application schedule is an administrative task.
Okay, so I can definitely put that in then,
okay.
yeah.
A Dropbox, I'll see what I can do with the Dropbox.
Who knows how to do that?
Well, I've had one once, but that was a while ago.
Well, that's all right. I think that's fine. You do what you can with it. and
Yeah,
we'll-
I'll ask
work
Faye
on
to
it.
help me,
And I guess we'll have to depend on some email to keep everybody,
yeah.
so we have a chance to see what other people are doing
Yeah.
at least partially before we do that.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you feel that it's really important for us to, oh, so you can't meet either.
I don't even
Yeah.
think I can, I
Yeah.
have to leave either Wednesday or Thursday. I'll be back
Right.
Saturday, but then
And what's the day that we're meeting with him? Monday?
Thursday the
Oh, Thursday,
4th.
the 4th, Thursday.
But, you know, sometimes things don't close when they say they're
No.
gonna close,
Oh,
so,
that's right.
so I don't know.
And that
just
wedding
have
is coming up, it's like a week and a half from now, or two
Yeah,
weeks, and
The farm is gonna be
I'm
used
nowhere
for a
near
wedding.
ready for having,
Oh, you got a wedding down there?
yeah,
Oh, boy.
yeah, boy.
Um,
No, it'll be fun. It's gonna be a
Um,
nice wedding.
I think
I say
maybe,
it'll be fun, it's gonna be a nice wedding.
maybe Monday, if we could email each other as to what we've,
Okay, Monday.
what our wording for things.
And that way we have to get started, we can't wait till the night before the meeting.
Yeah, well, the night before, when, assuming that this thing closes on Wednesday, that wouldn't work for me anyway, but.
That was sort of just a generalization, okay.
Okay, well, we'll try to do what we can.
Okay, and there's just one other little thing,
So by when did we say we wanted to have it?
Monday,
Monday.
if
You
you
have
could.
something else we need to do on the agenda?
Well, it's a small thing, we have a person who's interested in,
Oh,
that, I know, it's a person who can do, software, who has done software like Past Perfect and feels that it would not be a problem at all to,
do data entry.
yeah. I know, it puts another burden on you because I don't know I don't have any familiarity with it except what little I've sat beside you. But,
Do we,
If you keep piling on the time that I have to deal with somebody else, then how do I do the things that I'm supposed to do for this?
I know, I've been thinking of that, but I hate to,
We're trying to deal with one work-off person now.
you
If
know,
we have to deal with another one, that's another chunk of time, maybe every week or something, I don't know. This guy is used to coming in and working for hours. I can't do that.
maybe.
And I'm not turning him
Could
loose in that
you-
building with nobody there.
June, what would happen if we,
well, does he have to be there? Can't Past Perfect be run from somewhere else?
what's he gonna be doing on Past Perfect? Won't somebody have to prepare stuff for him to work with, or no?
You've gotta be working from something to put information in it. You can take stuff out of the lists that we've got, but as soon as you start to do that, you have a listing. You don't have a measurements, you don't have an explanation of it, any of that stuff, so you can't put any of that other stuff in. You're just putting a number in and some brief thing.
Yeah.
And then you gotta deal with the lexicon, cause you gotta find out what you call each
Yeah.
thing.
Well, if he's, I understand that maybe now is not the time, but I think that we should, because we just have all these other preoccupations. But,
I think we are really, to do what we are doing now well, I think it would be hard to put too much else on
but I
us.
think, but maybe my answer to Peggy would be, that we need this skilled person.
Yes,
But we can't put in the time to,
We can't put it together and set it up now.
yeah.
you know, we're gonna just be on a whole series of one thing after another starting up pretty soon, but maybe if the frequency of Dan's help, if that lets up a little bit, so that we're not trying to prepare things so fast, maybe then we could, when things slow down a little bit, so that he knows that we are very interested in having him work. But not,
You mean the work-off
right,
employee?
yes, not right now.
Okay, I can do that.
I think that's,
That's
and if you
good.
explain that we're just all of a sudden have a whole lot of
Yeah.
stuff we have to get together.
And there may
pretty
be
quickly.
somebody else, some other department that can use him right now. I think he's very interested in
Yeah.
in the field of history, and that's probably why
Yeah.
she, because he did ask specifically for
Yeah.
work.
You know, the other thing that I was gonna just suggest, if we start to feel overwhelmed, we're not gonna, because we're all doing other things too, we're not gonna do a good job. I mean, that's what happens. I was wondering about, now, do you do History Matters every week?
I'm not going to do it every week, but I have to figure that out.
That was what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
Don't-
tomorrow Rudiger is doing History Matters,
Oh,
but I
good.
have to be there.
Who is?
Rudiger is gonna do, he worked on a national register, he helped prepare documentation for the Frederick Douglass Square Historic District in Lower Roxbury.
Huh.
And he's gonna talk about
Oh,
that
neat.
experience, because
Neat.
it was basically him and two neighbors who really advocated for this, and they got it, and they succeeded. So,
That's great.
yeah, he's,
But in general, I wouldn't hesitate at all to say that History Matters will be every other week or twice a month. You know, I think it's admirable. I don't even know how you do it, that every week you come up with something. But
well, I don't.
worry about.
I've leaned on other people,
Oh.
like poor Barry is.
Yeah.
But I'm
But
gonna.
still, you're organizing it, you know, and
Yeah.
finding somebody.
Yeah.
And I worry about how much you're piling on yourself. I feel it's our duty to say, don't overdo.
Yeah. No, I can't do.
Yeah.
We're trying. Evie and I are trying to work that out.
Yeah,
And August is a little tough for me because of this
and you could
closing.
take August off. You could just say there won't be any History Matters until September again.
Oh, well, yeah, we could do that. Yeah. Yep.
I mean, one of the problems with things like that is that, okay, now that means every Tuesday afternoon, you're gonna be around. And you can't go do the thing you need to do in New Hampshire because it's a nice day, or because it's, it's like, but tomorrow it's gonna rain, so you can't do it tomorrow either,
Yeah. Well,
it's-
my
it's-
commitment to 19 Carter is pretty much History Matters. I'm not a donor
Yeah,
of any significance, and I don't volunteer for anything
Yeah,
else. So,
and
you
you
know,
know,
it
But
is-
you volunteer your husband for quite a few, or he volunteers.
oh yeah,
himself.
I gave Marty I said, you can have Marty because I need to work
You
some.
can talk him into it, you can have him.
yeah, because share your husband.
Well, he likes it.
Yeah.
He gets
Yeah.
a lot, he gives a lot for him.
Yeah.
Well, you might find one of two things. One, that people are kind of happy to not have to do History Matters every week, although I doubt that that's true. I think they probably love it.
May I
Or-
suggest that we could get our meeting done?
Yes,
And we
instead of.
release Brittany?
Yeah, we,
We can talk about any history matters and that elsewhere, because that's
the
not
other
part of it.
dilemmas, yeah. I don't think there was, sometimes I forget, but I think that's it. That's it for tonight.
I'm gonna move to adjourn.
Yes.
All right. Oh, I gotta write that down.
It's what time?
I second.
What time is it? It's 10, oh, it's 10 o'clock. Oh, mercy. Okay,
Well, we knew this was gonna take a while doing
yeah,
this
yeah,
stuff.
okay.
We knew this would be a while.
You know, that says 9 o'clock.